The rise of the Houthis, from rebels to rulers. Yemen, a nation on the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, has been embroiled in a brutal civil war for years. At the heart of this conflict is the Houthi movement, a Shia Muslim group that has challenged the Yemeni government for decades. The Houthis, hailing from the country's north, adhere to a branch of Shia Islam known as Zaydism. They long felt marginalized by the Yemeni government, which they accused of corruption and discrimination. In the early 2000s, the Houthis, under the leadership of Hussein Badreddin al-Houthi, launched an armed rebellion against the government. The Houthis were a determined fighting force, skilled in guerrilla warfare and fueled by a potent mix of religious zeal and economic grievances. Exploiting the weakness of the Yemeni government and capitalizing on widespread discontent, the Houthis steadily gained ground. The Arab Spring uprisings in 2011 provided a critical turning point for the Houthis. As protests swept across the region, Yemen too witnessed mass demonstrations demanding political reform and an end to corruption. Seizing the opportunity, the Houthis joined the protests, their ranks swelling with disaffected Yemenis seeking change. By 2014, the Houthis had consolidated their control over much of northern Yemen, including the capital, Sana'a. The Yemeni government, weakened and fractured, was forced to flee. The Houthis, once a marginalized rebel group, had become the dominant force in Yemen. A carrier under fire. Houthi attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman. The conflict in Yemen took a dangerous turn in recent weeks, escalating tensions far beyond the country's borders. The Houthi movement, emboldened by its control of northern Yemen and its alliance with Iran, launched a series of audacious attacks against a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier group, led by the USS Harry S. Truman. The Truman, a Nimitz-class supercarrier, is a symbol of American military might, and the Houthi attacks were seen as a direct challenge to the United States. The Houthis claimed responsibility for the attacks, boasting of their ability to strike U.S. assets in the region. According to Houthi statements, they launched a barrage of missiles and drones targeting the Truman and its escort ships. The attacks sent shockwaves through the region, raising fears of a wider conflict engulfing the Red Sea and beyond. The U.S. Navy, while acknowledging the Houthi attacks, downplayed their significance. U.S. officials insisted that the Truman and its accompanying ships were unharmed, and that the Houthi attacks were repelled by the carrier group's sophisticated defense systems. The U.S. Navy emphasized its commitment to protecting freedom of navigation in the Red Sea, and warned the Houthis against further provocations. The Houthi attacks, regardless of their effectiveness, marked a dangerous escalation in the Yemen conflict. The attacks underscored the growing military capabilities of the Houthis, and their willingness to target high-value U.S. assets. Moreover, the attacks highlighted the volatile situation in the Red Sea, a vital waterway for global trade and a potential flashpoint for regional conflict. Striking back, the U.S. response and its implications. The United States, in response to the Houthi attacks, launched airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. The strikes, carried out by U.S. warplanes, targeted Houthi military facilities, weapons depots and command centers. The Pentagon stated that the strikes were intended to degrade the Houthis' military capabilities and deter future attacks on U.S. forces and their allies in the region. The U.S. airstrikes were met with condemnation from the Houthis, who vowed to retaliate against what they called American aggression. The Houthis accused the United States of siding with their enemies, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, in the Yemen conflict. The strikes threatened to further escalate the conflict and complicate efforts to reach a negotiated settlement. The international community expressed concern over the renewed fighting in Yemen. The United Nations called for restraint from all sides and urged a return to the negotiating table. Humanitarian organizations warned of the devastating consequences of the conflict on Yemeni civilians, millions of whom rely on humanitarian aid for survival. A sea of uncertainty. The Red Sea and the future of the Yemen conflict. The Houthi attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman and the subsequent U.S. airstrikes have cast a long shadow over the Red Sea, a vital waterway connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. The Red Sea is a crucial shipping route for global trade, carrying billions of dollars worth of goods each year. The recent escalation in tensions threatens to disrupt this vital artery of commerce, with potentially far-reaching economic consequences. The Red Sea is also a strategically important region, home to several countries with competing interests and alliances. The presence of powerful navies, including those of the United States, China, and Russia, further complicates the situation. The Yemen conflict, with its regional and international dimensions, has the potential to draw these external powers into a wider confrontation, with unpredictable and potentially catastrophic consequences. The future of the Yemen conflict remains uncertain. The Houthis, despite years of war and a devastating humanitarian crisis, remain a potent fighting force, determined to maintain their grip on power. The Yemeni government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition, seems no closer to defeating the Houthis militarily. The international community, while recognizing the need for a political solution, has been unable to broker a lasting peace agreement. The conflict has created a humanitarian catastrophe, with millions of Yemenis facing famine, disease, and displacement. The recent escalation in violence threatens to exacerbate this already dire situation, pushing Yemen further into the abyss.